broke down how you probably would work with the client on that. Because you explained shadow work and how you feel it would benefit someone who is wanting to date and wanting to attract better partners and better people.
Mm-hmm. So shadow work, and I think we talked about the last time, shadow work is addressing those inner parts of you that are, for lack of a better word, toxic. Those parts of you that if you had vomit inside of you, that's what the shadow work is. Because when that vomit comes up, and it will, and it always does, you have to be able to let it out. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, sit in it and sift through it. Because you'll realize that a lot of those thoughts and emotions were what you thought you felt, but not realize the perspective of how it would happen.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say something happened as a child. That, as a child's perspective, you're looking at it as, let's say, a father walks out on a child at like 6 years old. The child was blaming themselves the whole time as they're getting older. It's my fault. The dad left. You know, he did it because he didn't like me. Things like that. Yet now as an adult, you're dealing with abandonment because you're thinking somebody's going to leave me again. I'm going to feel the same 6-year-old way I felt before. Opposed to recognizing, number one, your father didn't leave because of you. Clearly, him and your mom had some hiccups that they didn't address. You've not ever been left alone from those that love you. And if your father couldn't be there, I'm sure there was some avenues of your life where you got reunited or whatever the case may be. Those feelings were as a 6-year-old. Yeah. You're no longer a 6-year-old. Acknowledge the fact that if those that need to be in your life will be there, you'll see that. So they'll have to now look at the people in their life and now assess, you're here and for a reason for what? Yeah. You know, they may tend to lash out on the people, but it's best to, again, keep your mouth shut and keep your mind open. Okay. So you can now sit within yourself and take that time to heal by yourself. Because really healing, you're doing that by yourself. Got you. As a healer, I can get you to the fork in the road, but it's up to you to go left or right.
Got you. I want to piggyback on the question. Why do you think as human beings we are so fixated and focused on the ones who left? The ones who didn't do right?
Because we blame ourselves for them leaving.
But there's so much love around us.
It doesn't matter, they're gone. The imagination goes crazy. So you're imagining if they were here, X, Y, and Z. If mom was a better woman, dad would have been here. There's a lot of blame because they're not understanding why. They're at a 6-year-old level.
Gotcha.
So they're trying to figure out, well, why did this happen? How come I feel like this? You know, children are selfish. They're ungrateful. They all of that.
They see the world in their own view, yeah.
Right. So to understand why a child thinks the way they do, they're going to always love the absent because absent is what you don't know.
That's true. So do you think as adults we're still in that 6-year-old mind frame?
Oh, yeah.
And then when we get with a dismissive person,
we trigger
that thought and chasing the imagination of what it could be.
Because the imagination equals love. So we'll end up, let's say if a 6-year-old girl, she's probably going to end up getting a mate who's just like the father who left.
Yeah.
Because that's the imagination of love.
Got you. And I know, Hey everybody, it is your girl DJ with Plan for Keys podcast, and today I have Deniece Camile. She is a couples counselor and a mental midwife. We're going to dig into more of what a mental midwife means in a minute, and she is here to speak about relationship with self, awareness of dating ourselves, and what love looks like for human beings alone. How are you today?
I am excellently alive and abundantly glowing.
You know, I love that because I see it. I love that for you. I see it. Ooh.
Okay,
yes, Queen.
Let's get this party started.
Yeah, so before we dig into these topics, I would love to hear more about you, like how you became the mental midwife, how you became a couples counselor, all of that good stuff.
Okay, so greetings, everyone. How did I become... Let's jump into the couples counseling first and go back to the mental midwife.
Okay.
So with the couples counseling, for me, it was being in a marriage, being with the same gentleman for 17 years. experiencing a life of logic, I'd say, and knowing that, recognizing that I was in a loveless marriage. And when I say loveless, I was able to recognize that I had put my heart in a lockbox from, like, let's say week 1 or 2, when his behavior patterns were hurtful to me. Yet the mindset of me was still wanting more to hear what he had to say, because I realized that, okay, his attraction to me or for me was the mind. And being a Sag, back then I didn't know too much about the zodiac yet. Sag is sapiosexual. We love intellectual conversations. We just love to lick on somebody else's brain.
That's a fact.
So for me, it turned into, being curious, and curiosity kills a cat. Yet seeing that was a challenge for me, dating him, and realizing that, oh, okay. Oh, it was one of those, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Learning through that. A lot of trauma happened in the beginning where I lost, well, I didn't lose. We don't lose people that transition. My brother was murdered. And then a few years later, 2 years later, his mom transitioned in his arms. So it was a lot of trauma.
Wow.
And I felt that at that point we had one child and one on the way. I felt that we stuck it out because of the sake of the children, because our both concepts were, we're a family. Let's make it work.
Yeah.
Yet we weren't truly addressing our own individual concepts of healing and or emotions.
Got you.
So that was where the couples counseling came in, based on the 17 years of experience of what worked and what doesn't.
Got you. Let me ask you this. 'Cause I know people will talk about trauma bonds. People trauma bonded. That's how they got together. Do you feel during, like, y'all relationship, you not losing somebody, but when your brother transitioned, and then you said his mother transitioned, correct?
Right.
Do you feel like in a way y'all trauma bonded as well while trying to stay together, or was it just always just, like you said, logic? Like,
I wouldn't say it was trauma. Yet for me, I can say it wasn't trauma. Yet I remember him saying after she transitioned, I wasn't there because I drove back to where I lived at that point in Rhode Island. And I couldn't be there because the energy was just so dense, where she was transitioning slowly through those days. I was pregnant 3 months. It was just an environment that I knew I couldn't survive in.
yeah.
So when I left, his thing was, I'll forgive you for not being there, yet I won't forget it. So it was more like resent than trauma.
Okay.
So, and I didn't realize I had my own resent towards him that was kind of building throughout the years. And sometimes as Sages, we can forget, like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
la la, okay, it's nothing. So I would tend to just forget a lot of the challenges that we've gone through, yet the body never forgets.
It doesn't.
So throughout those years, as time went on, we both had decided to denounce religion, and we got into spirituality. And it was there where I was able to find my voice through spirituality. And I remember he used to say that I should have never introduced you to it because I should have kept you Christian. You were more submissive. You would have just done what I told you to do, like you used to do. And I said, well, that was interesting. We were, at that point, we were still married, yet it was learning to acknowledge who I am before who we were.
Yeah.
So my voice got, I don't want to say louder, it was just now more defined. So we would have a lot of agreements and disagreements, yet it was on a place of learning to grow yourself individually and more peacefully. So I would say, I'm from the feminine aspect, you're from the masculine. I agree to disagree. Yeah. And that's okay. I was able to find more peace within myself and recognize that, okay, this isn't going to work for my spirit. And, it took a while because, again, as a Sag, we're loyal. We hold on to, that boat could be drowned like Titanic, but we're not going down with the billionaires, but it's okay. We are loyal, and I have a West Indian background, which is like a double loyal. Yeah. We're just not going to let it go. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it. Yet, for me having to address that, I realized, for me having to finally file for divorce, it took 3 times because there was so much mental manipulation. of all those years.
Yeah.
So it's having to reassess the mind, recognizing, oh, okay, you're still safe with or without, and then addressing who I was as a mother, because I didn't like the term single mother, because being single is a choice. Being a mother is a responsibility.
Right.
So, some mothers, I'm a single mother. Listen, as a mother, you have no other choice but to be responsible and nurturing to your children. Right. Being single is what you're choosing to stay to be safe in your mind and in your heart. So that was in a nutshell of the couples counseling, because I knew what worked and what didn't work. Okay. I had my brother, he would always say, Deniece, you have to strategize. In order for you to leave, you have to strategize. So being that he's a Gemini, Geminis, and I'll say this out loud, Geminis have 10 different personalities. A lot of them can agree to that. They have 10.
Yeah.
So I remember when I left, I said, I learned 9 and I left you at 1. And he was upset. He's like, I don't even like the fact that you learned me, period. Because nobody's supposed to learn, a Gemini.
Right.
Yet I said, I left a gem in you. And I had to learn the 9 to acknowledge who I was to be able to move accordingly. I never did anything in secret. Matter of fact, when I moved out at 10 o'clock in the morning. Broad daylight. I packed for a whole month. He saw it. He's like, oh, I thought you were bluffing. I'm sad. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Oh, that's a fact.
So, it was a lesson. I don't hate him. I don't resent him. I did have, challenges of emotional breakdown because I realized I had emotions.
Right.
So in couples counseling, I can almost to the point where, first of all, it is a gift. Second of all, I can say that I've had some couples where off the first session, I can tell if they're going to make it or not. Just based off hearing what their foundational concepts of a couple looks like.
So do you continue to on with them as one of your clients, even though you feel you could tell whether they make it or not, or you just...
No, I tell them. I said, y'all not going to make it. That's not going to work. I'm a sad, so I'm going to give it to you raw butt naked. I'm going to just let you know this is not here for you. And a lot of them have called back after. I was like, thank you. We weren't going to do it, but we needed someone to kind of just say this is not it.
So before I piggyback to your story, what makes the difference, you like the cues that you probably see of a couple that probably can work through something and ones who can't?
Number one, what are the challenges? Is it superficial or is it deeply rooted? Number two, do they know themselves enough to know each other? Because their perspectives can be from here on two opposite sides of the spectrum, yet a lot of times they're just mirroring each other back to back. They just haven't even seen it. And I'm like, oh, I can see it. Y'all doing the same thing. Y'all just back to back. And then when they see that, it's like, oh, okay. Because that's the bridge is not connected because they don't know where the connection has been broken. Okay. Yeah. And then the ones that don't make it, it's because their concept or their perspectives of love is different. Like I had one where one's perspective of love was business, one was religion. Okay. I said you can't merge the two. It's not going to work. Yeah. Love doesn't exist in religion, nor does it exist in business.
That's a fact.
So it can stem from any which way.
Okay, got you. I want to piggyback to when your husband introduced you to spirituality. Mm-hmm. What attracted him to spirituality?
It's funny because we both were in a leadership class in church. Mm-hmm. And it was so simple. The pastor had said, church is not for just winning souls. It's a business. Lights got to get paid. Bills got to get paid. And we're sitting across from this big-ass table, and we both looked at each other like, what the fuck? You don't say that to the congregation. We don't need to hear all of that. That's something you keep to yourself.
Right.
That's what actually stemmed him to kind of look into certain things. And a couple of nights later, we were praying with the older two kids because the other ones hadn't come yet. And I'm saying something about the Lord or something. And he just blurts out, there's more than one Lord. And I open my eye like, what are you? In Jesus' name, amen. And I had to address it like, what exactly are we talking about? So he would break it down with different things. And, he would give me the information and go do the research myself. And I did because I wanted to understand it from my perspective only. Mm-hmm. So that way, when I understand it, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, got you. Okay, so do you feel he used spirituality in any type of way within your relationship to probably just kind of break it up even more than what?
No. I don't think that was his intention.
Yeah, I know it wasn't the intention,
I don't think it
but
was intention. I don't think that he had any concepts of how it would affect me because he loved it so much. So it would be
so
nice.
this
I'm
was
waking.
just him sharing something he loved and thinking that you should be a part of it as well.
Well, no, he was. His concept was that He was going to learn this, and I remember working when I worked. One of their concept was meet your participant where they are. So I said to myself, okay, if I'm married, let me meet my husband where he is.
Okay.
Let me go and learn and see where he is and what he's learning, so I can learn it too.
Okay.
So that was my concept of getting into spirituality. It wasn't anything he shoved down my throat. He wasn't that type. He wasn't that type to like force you to do anything you didn't want to do. So
Gotcha.
in a way, we function on conversations, like deep conversations, and the spirituality piece actually we became tighter. But then once we got tighter, we kind of went a different way because he was so driven individually, opposed to okay, we have a whole family back here.
Yeah.
I'm nursing the twins. Like we got two older children. Like let's keep this party copacetic.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
kind of separated y'all, and then eventually the marriage kind of dissolved.
Well, yeah, I mean, in his defense, he stated that he was going through something mentally, and he would want me to assist and help. And I said, well, I could bring you to the water, but I can't make you drink. You have to want this for yourself. You have to decide how important this marriage, this relationship, this family is to you because, men take 1,000 breaks a day when it comes to kids. They'll tap out like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, well, I could do this by myself because you tapped out for at least 20 hours of the day. I'm going to need you to come on back. But if you choose not to, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, as a mother, you don't even think as to how much you're really doing.
Yeah, you don't.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a whole different fight or flight thought process because you're not even thinking fight or flight. You're thinking, I got to do this.
Yeah.
I'll address it later on emotionally, yet for right now, I have to do this logically. So, that's where the logic came in because I had to have a way to find me and figure out who she was.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Got you. Okay. So once, the divorce happened, all that stuff, were you doing counseling even when you were married? Like how did that fit into your life?
Okay, so the counseling actually came in with the mental midwifery.
Okay.
So I was training for 5 years under an elder through midwifery because I was in the birth working field. I wanted to become a doula. So I was a doula for a while. I remember one of my clients, I said to myself, there's got to be more than this than just being a doula because there's so much more that these mommies and families need that I can assist with. So I was training under her and we broke down, of course, the anatomy, physiology. We had to break down the two cradle system, how melanated people are different from the European system, and it was different. And then one of the days we talked about the brain. For whatever reason, we're looking at the brain, and I see a bird in the brain. I was like, oh, that's why they say a little birdie told you, because there's a real bird in your brain.
Really?
There's a real bird in your brain. And that's actually the cover on my book, Justice for the Caged Mind. It's a bird brain. So it's a bird because the eye of the bird is your pineal gland. So that's what opens up the concept of spirituality and consciousness.
I'm so excited.
So,
okay, keep going.
So the counseling piece came in because even when I would be a student with her and we're going to different clients, while she's talking to them, our role is to just listen and to learn. I was actually able to see the clients from their energetic age. Like for me, there was one couple, they were, I think, 25. I think she was like 28 and her mom was like maybe in her 50s. The man ended up being 8 and I think she was like 7 and her mom was 15. So that allowed me to see, okay, what am I really dealing with? So that allowed me to now counsel from the right age group.
Got you.
Because most times as adults, we're not even grown. We're still big children.
Got Got you. So when you are counseling these people that are 28, but energetically they're 15, are you bringing them back to? Are you
The
peeling
15.
the 15 and
Yeah.
peeling back the layers to
Yeah.
help them discover where
Where,
they're
right,
at?
right. Why
And then,
15?
yeah,
And then, okay, now we can move on from here.
got you.
Usually with the initial session with clients, I'm peeling back to my 4 basic questions. Who raised you? How many siblings? When's your birthday? Because I do a little bit of zodiac as well. And what's your pivotal point in your life? Because men, of course, see it more definitive than women to have a pivotal point. Because that pivotal point, they hold on to that like there's a hurricane coming.
They
And I'm
do.
not letting go.
They do.
So they revolve the rest of their lives around that
Around
pivotal
that.
point. So around that point in their mindset where they hold true to like whether dad left or my girl broke up with me or, we had a child. It could be anything.
Something happened to
They
me.
hold on to that pivotal point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Got you. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's a lot to unpack
No.
there, but we're going to
We're going to hold on to this mic.
We're gonna hold on. Okay. We gonna, I want to dive into these topics.
Okay.
This is kind of a dating and relationship podcast.
Right.
We steer.
We're not. We're bringing it back.
We're going to bring it back. Okay. So I want to talk about the first topic, relationship with self.
Okay.
I want to know, when you wrote this down, what thoughts came to your mind?
Because my focus is self-awareness as an individual, before we date anybody else, we have to know what kind of relationship do we have with ourselves. Are we in a platonic relationship? Are we in a romantic relationship? Are we in a mother-child relationship? Are we in a teacher-to-student relationship? Because we all talk to ourselves.
Right.
What are we telling ourselves? Are we yelling, "You supposed to be doing that, Susie"? I don't know who Susie is, but okay. Are we feeling like, oh, I need to be touched in a certain way? What kind of relationship can we identify with ourselves with?
When you think about like people that you've counseled, when you think about the population now, what type of relationships do you think the majority have, and why the dating scene is the way it is right now? Like when you think about all the personalities, which one or two do you think mostly
It's a parent to child. It's a parent to child because a lot of them are still blaming their parents for their lack of growth. So it comes to a place of either they're A, still hearing the parent yelling at them, or B, not feeling good enough to be being proud of from their parent.
That's okay.
So, or C, I'm arguing with my parent and my mom because I know what they would have told me. So I feel guilty for not doing what they said they felt I should have been doing. Like as a parent, we can see our children's potential and hope to God that they run with that. Right? Yet, as a real parent, we realize, let me just put my hands up and you're going to fall flat on your face a few times. You're going to learn your best way through that. Yeah. I can only be there to dust you off and say, okay, well, get up or get back up. You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Breathe through it, learn from your mistakes, and keep moving. So it's having to understand that as a parent, the vocal abuse that we used to hear and give, and I say as mothers, we need a lot of duct tape. We need to stop talking and start acting what we say we're going to do.
Okay.
Because our kids are listening.
Yeah.
I remember my oldest, he was 5, and he learned his new word was hypocrite. When I tell you, he called me that every day when he was 5. I'm like, oh, okay. He was like, Mom, you say something, but you're not doing what you tell me to do. And I'm like, you know what? This is some BS. But kids hold you accountable.
Yeah, they do.
So, think about the grown, well, nobody's grown, we're all growing. Think about the adult who is still not feeling accountable enough to their parent to say, okay, my mom would have wanted me to be, I don't know, a lawyer, but I want to be a tattoo artist. Okay. She doesn't respect my craft because she thinks I should be something else. Gotcha. So they're arguing with themselves the whole time.
How does that translate in a relationship? And then I want to go through the other 3 and then explaining how you did that one, and then how does that translate in a relationship? So
in dating, usually 1 or 2 things happen. You're attracting a mate from a parent you haven't healed from. Mm-hmm. So let's say this mom of yours and this gentleman, the mom has some good traits, yet her not so good other traits you attract. So you're triggered. every moment, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, this person's not good for me. They do this, they do that. Everything is an experience.
Yeah.
Everything is either a lesson or a blessing. So for the ones that we're attracting that are our parents, we need to take a step back and realize, what is it about our parent that we didn't like? Because we chose our parents when we got here. So what is it about the lesson that we're not willing to subject ourselves to realizing, hey, I need to be accountable to this?
Got you. Let me ask you this. Going back to you saying that we chose our parents,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of kids who go through bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those kids, like when you said, do you think those kids choose those parents to learn something? Why do you think those kids would have chosen those parents?
Well, when I say we chose them, that's on a spiritual level. So there's something that that ancestor needed to learn, so they picked those two parents to come through.
Got you.
And it's a place of you as the child, the physical child is looking as if I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to go through this. And, there's so much sexual abuse going on in family households.
Yes, it is.
That's a place of, at some point, there's going to be that warrior to break the generational hiccup.
Yeah.
And most times the children are the most resilient because they're the ones going through it and have to heal themselves and now the rest of the family for the future to stop what's going on. Okay. So it's the generational path that they chose to come with to address it then and then to learn how to heal through it as they get older.
Got you. I'm going to dig more into that on
the
other conversation.
We just dug a whole lot.
We just dig it up. So, okay. I want to go. We talked about one. You named four. What's the other three of the different the other three of like the different types of I lost my train of thought. You named four different types of like, I know self-love was one, but you just named four different types of, like, basically when someone has like the personality. Like, I think you named like the teacher relationship.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I was like, what are we talking about?
I'm trying to remember. Okay. Okay.
We need a whiteboard. Oh, okay. So here's what we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of them was the parent to child. That's the one we talked about.
Yeah.
So the teacher to student, right? That's the personality, the relationship with yourself. So as the teacher, you're looking at your past, and the student is now the more growing up you. You're looking back to your past to recognize what didn't work before. Let's make a change and see to be better now. Because the teacher already has the stuff on the chalkboard.
Right.
You're the student looking at it like, okay, I learned that lesson. We're not going to go there. Okay. You're basically self-sufficient.
Got you. So you're somebody who basically is self-aware and know what's going on and
right.
Make sure not to go. How does that translate? How does that type of person translate
into dating?
Yeah.
They tend to try to be somebody's parent because in reality they know their mistakes.
Yeah.
They know their experiences, so they're going to make sure you don't make those same mistakes that I've made. So I'm going to control you in a way so you be the, I don't want to say robot, but the automaton, the child that I need you to be because I need another student.
Got you.
Because the student became the teacher.
That's a negative aspect. What are the positive aspects of this type of person?
So the positive aspects is that they're healthy in a way where they give people their space. They're individual. Yeah. They need independence because they've taught themselves so many things that what works for them. And they're willing to identify that I am me with or without you.
Got you. And that's when they have that type of personality and they're operating in a healthy space.
And they're operating in a healthy space, yeah.
Got you.
So dating is who they attract. So they wouldn't even look at it as dating. It's just who they attract in the vibe that they're in.
Got you. And then we talked about two. What's the third one?
Golly. We should have had these written down. It was parent to child, teacher to student. It just had it in my head. I had a dry erase board in my head. Oh God.
If not, we can circle back.
We're gonna have to buy so it's like it's there, but it's like we ain't coming. Parent to child, teacher to student. Oh God, we got to circle back. This is gonna come at the last minute. Like,
And
oh,
that's
that's what it
fine.
was.
We'll try to
Okay,
piece it all together. Okay.
okay.
So thinking about just those different type of personalities and
Mm-hmm.
how we talk to ourselves and the type of relationships we have with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
how do you work with couples? Like once you
Okay.
discover what type, I guess who they are
Right.
within
What type
themselves,
their
how they treat
perspective, their
themselves, and then
personality.
how they project it out to their partner in the world. Like how do
Right.
you work with couples to discover like themselves and how to work with that?
So, and I tell couples all the time, I have to speak to them individually sometimes just so that I can figure out where do you see life?
Mm-hmm.
What is your perspective on this? Because most times couples are pointing the finger, no, it's you, no, it's you. And it's like, okay, children, let's address what's the root issue. Because again, with couples, people use the word, oh, I'm in a relationship, I'm in a couple. You really have an accountability partner. So most times that accountability partner is holding you accountable to your bullshit.
Yeah.
And if nobody ever done that to you before, it's going to seem like if you're on the defense and you don't trust what they're saying, or they may be showing you exactly who you are in a different box.
Right.
And you don't like it because you're like, oh, they do this. I'm like, well, who does that sound like? They're not even thinking to see themselves outside of themselves.
Got you. Got you.
So, yeah.
Got you. So that's how how do you get them to see that?
So I have to give them from their examples that they're giving me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to now circle it back and say, okay, look at what this looks like from a different angle. Number one. Number two, who does it sound like? Because I need you to be accountable to your own truth.
Yeah.
And having to see what the hiccups are, where a lot of times there are some couples where they don't realize that they're actually similar with their pros and similar, or they can learn from each other from pros and cons. Yeah, they're not looking at it that way. They're like, no, he's just different. He's opposite. I'm like, opposites attract. So it's
Right.
having to see why did you attract to him, what made you attract, and yet who are you really dealing with? Not necessarily representative, yet some people don't realize. I've had a few, more than I think I should be dealing with, or not should be dealing with yet, a few that were dealing with, I call them mental health patients,
Okay.
where this person is so deep under their own emotions, they haven't even addressed themselves yet.
Right.
So the person that you're yelling at, they've been blank. So you need to give them their space to unearth what they have to address. And it ain't got nothing to do with you. It's just you met them where they think they're better, but they're still bottled up.
Right.
So, yeah.
So then you work with them to
Then I work them individually because I would tell the mate, be mindful of when they are around you. Just if you can imagine a mirror, like a long mirror, facing the other party. So when they do project, it bounces back. It doesn't come on as if it's personal.
Yeah.
Because the challenge with couples is that we take what we say to each other personally because we've seen each other naked. So we see this at our weakest. Like we see the dimples, we see the tattoo, we see the scars. And to me, those are the best things of people because that's what make you unique.
Right.
Yet it's at a place of most couples don't respect each other's word.
Got you.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Why do you think most couples don't respect each other's word? Do you think it's because they're just so comfortable with that person in a way?
A part of them doesn't trust their mate. A lot of them don't trust each other because they don't trust themselves. So it's having to figure out, why don't you trust yourself? What does that look like?
How do you get people to see they don't even trust themselves?
I have to keep saying it because they're like, I'll keep saying it to them. They're like, what? I was like, but you're not trusting him. Why don't you trust yourself? Because you have an insecurity. Where's the insecurity coming from? Let's go back to the past. Let's go back. Let's go back because you always got to, like Shrek said, we're like onions. We have layers.
Right.
You got to always peel back the layers and ask yourself, well, why did this happen? Okay, why did I make that decision? And for the most part, for women, it goes back to value. We don't value ourselves enough. We don't think we're good enough to be worthy. For the men, it goes back to, I don't think anybody can comfort my emotions the way I need to.
Okay.
So you have uncomfortable emotions with a lack of what I deserve or value.
So do you think with women, for them basically not seeing their values because due to society. And would you
Yeah,
say the
because
same thing for men?
yeah, because if we were taught to, for men, communicate how we feel as men
Mm-hmm.
and as women, be act as if your body is your temple, yet no one and nothing should come to your temple, which is your body and your mind, actually.
Yeah.
If we're taught that in school at that rearing age, let's say elementary school even, society would be a different place.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Awareness of dating ourselves.
So this was something my guy friend years ago had suggested. He's like, Deniece, why don't you take yourself on a date? I was like, what? He was like, buy yourself some flowers, go on a date, pay, have a conversation. And I'm crazy, so I'll do it. So I did it. But yet I bought some plastic sunflowers because as I was driving to the restaurant, I said to myself, I want to get flowers, but I don't. At that point, I wasn't a flower person. And the one flower that kept popping up was sunflowers.
That's my favorite flower.
That's what I hear a lot of women say. And I'm like, what? So when I Googled sunflowers at that time, it said it's very special for women because it means trustworthy, it means strength, and it means like self-deserving.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I went and got, I went and got the biggest sunflowers, got the wrapping paper, got it all done, and I went party of one, ordered the food, and had a real conversation with myself because I talk to myself all the time. I learned that one of the states I lived in, Rhode Island, there were a lot of crazy people. Yet I was asking myself back then, who were they crazy to?
Right.
So it's the society they're crazy, and in reality, they're trusting themselves because their self is their best friend. So they're asking themselves questions, they're answering themselves questions, they're cracking jokes, they're laughing back. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yet they're in a place where no one will bother them because they think they're crazy. But in reality, you're making sure you're not attracting foolishness around you.
Interesting.
So dating yourself means spending time with you and seeing what you enjoy.
Got you.
Because most times people you don't even know what you like sometimes. You're just like, well, society says I gotta do this. I gotta go on a date. I gotta go eat. For me, I'm like, I'd rather just be in the park laying at the sun or the moon.
Right. I know I was talking to one coach and she gave me she gave me an example for myself that made me start like just valuing myself more.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you would listen to love songs and you were thinking about another person,
right?
And how you just love this other person. She's like, why don't you sing a song to yourself and think about yourself?
Yeah,
and that totally helped me like flip
the whole
right of just kind of loving on myself more,
right,
and dating myself. Now, I've never took myself out like on a date, right?
Okay.
Like
it's the first time for everything,
right? What tip would you give for somebody to actually take themselves out on a date?
Well, for starters, treat yourself as if you were really somebody who's going to pick you up and then take you out. Do what you normally would do. You know, if you're going to get a nice dress. But, okay, so if you're going to get a nice dress, the makeup, the hair, the nails, the hoopla, yet also be mindful the person picking you up is you.
Yeah.
So what would you want to look like for you?
Yo, that's a deep-ass question.
Because think about it. Most times when women go on dates with men, they're basically half naked, see-through, everything is tucked, cut, whatever. Yet, in reality, that's not comfortable for us. We just want to be in probably one of those boho dresses or sundresses and comfortable.
Yeah.
Looking cute and comfortable. And it's at a place where you get to now check you. Because like if Deniece is picking me up, I need to be on time. Because I know Deniece likes time. Time is valuable. Time is of the essence. We all have 24 hours in a day. What does she like? She doesn't like perfume. So I'll put on something essential oils. What kind of music? She damn sure don't like trap music. So
No.
she don't.
Girl, what? Okay, keep going.
Okay,
my bad.
She wants to hear either some old school 70s or 80s music.
Okay.
Because one of my old friend in college said I had like an old white lady and a young 12-year-old black girl mixed together. I have records I play at home.
Oh, that's dope.
She likes old school live jazz music.
Okay.
That's what Deniece would like. So I would dress appropriately for Deniece to come pick me up. Because I would want Deniece to pick me up. So it's having to know what would make Deniece smile when she sees me.
What's a tip? Because like what we just was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in society, it's crazy. Now, I talk to myself
I
in that third person, right
Did you
there.
give her a name?
She's still Dominique, but
You got to give her a name.
I gotta give
Usually
her.
it's your middle name.
Really,
Yeah.
I don't want to call her Josephine. That's real. That's my.
Well, have you Googled what Josephine, what the name means?
I'm sure it's very deep,
Right.
but I don't think I want a name.
You haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I ain't get there yet.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
still Dominique because I'm not gonna. I am the type to talk to myself.
Okay.
My father, my kid's father thinks I'm a little cuckoo because he will hear me because I am like that.
But you have
But
to.
I feel like that's how I've learned myself.
Uh-huh.
But I've been doing it even before I even got to this learning myself. I always was the type to talk to and talk out loud. I
Right.
Full blown conversations with myself on how I'm gonna plan stuff out and
Okay.
what I want stuff to look like. Breaking the stigma for people because people still think that's crazy.
No, it's not crazy. And crazy is a compliment because that means I don't think like the rest of everybody else.
But what tip would you give to somebody? Like, cause for me, I don't know. It makes me feel good afterward to counsel with myself.
Right.
To even to break down certain things like you did. That's kind of how I learned stuff about what I like, what I don't like, stuff like that, and not. For me, in regards to loving relationships, not just doing whatever the man wanted me to do. What does Dominique like?
Right.
For you, like, what tip would you give? Because I feel like everybody's just not there.
Well, they might not be. Yet, what I would say is because you hit on the topic of you have your voice, and the third party, counsel for the tip is counsel that second voice, which is really your first voice, and then that third voice, and say what makes going out tonight worth it. You know, what makes it, because sometimes we do things just because, like you said, the mate asks, hey, I want to do this. And they just want to go out and they probably can have an attitude. So you waste your time like, what in the hell?
Right.
What am I doing this for? You? Okay.
Right.
Yet it's having to ask yourself before you go out, is this something I want to do? Is this something I genuinely want to do? Because, you know, the minute you step foot out your house, you throw money away. You throw money away. You can be in the comfort of your home with peace of mind with a good conversation with someone that's worth it.
Yeah.
And that person is yourself.
Got you.
So it could be, let's say you do decide to go on a date with yourself. I would say journal out the questions you want to ask yourself. Because most people say, oh, there's been a lot of couples that I've counseled and that I haven't counseled, yet I've just had conversations with. They don't know each other.
At all.
At all. I remember years ago, there was this one gentleman that I decided to, give it a try. Yet I knew in my heart, I'm like, this ain't gonna work. I just can't. Like, I literally wrote down 26 questions off the top of my head.
Did you do this to him on the first date?
I did, and he was excited.
Okay.
He was like, just give me more. And I'm like, I'm cuckoo. It's okay. Yet he was like, that's different though.
Yeah.
No one's ever done that.
So he appreciated it.
Right. I had literally 26 real questions. Like, I'm not asking your favorite color, nothing like that.
I can believe that.
I'm just real questions. So it's like, these are things that will make you stand out to yourself because it helps you identify, okay, if I'm so passionate about just seeing who I am, where does that take me to my next level? In me.
That's a fact. So, again, going back to awareness of dating ourselves, like outside of just actually going out on dates, you mentioned journaling.
Right.
What other ways could we date ourselves to get to know ourselves so when we actually go out into the world and start trying to date, to present our most authentic selves? Because I feel like that's a problem too. Like, people go out with this representative and 3 months later or 6 months later or a year or whatever the case may be, it just crumbles and shambles because I feel like, this is just me and my perspective. I know a lot of people have a lot of negativity. Now, I know there's bad people, right, who try to do certain things, but I feel like the majority actually do go in with good intentions, right?
Right.
And then, but they come in with this fake representative.
I'm good, right.
I'm good.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has something to do with not knowing themselves, not knowing what they want, things of that nature. How would one date themselves so they can get to know themselves, so they can present themselves the best?
Now I'm gonna throw this out there. This just came to me, and I just get upset with this. We as a melanated people,
Okay.
a lot of us do not know how to swim.
I know how to.
A lot don't know how to swim.
Okay.
I say that because swimming, getting into water is a vortex.
Okay.
So being able to swim and get into water, you still hear your thoughts in the water, right? You're still able to ask yourself questions while you're swimming in the water. You're not worried about nobody else because you're inside the water. So you're able to get to these root questions. You're not going to cry in the water because there's water around you. Yet these questions are really going to come up. And when they come up, they're not just coming up in dry air, they're coming up in water. So it doesn't feel as bad as it is in water as it is outside.
So how does one immerse themselves in water subconsciously?
Take a bath.
So you get
literally, physically get right, right.
And as you're in the bath,
your thoughts are gonna be there regardless. Most of us don't know how to turn our minds off.
That's a fact.
And if you're taking a regular shower, and for me, I bathe in the devil's tears. The water's really hot. You,
girl,
you have your deepest thoughts in the shower.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, because you're in a vortex. Water is a vortex. You tap in to tap out.
Okay.
That's why I always suggest keep a dry erase board or a pen and paper right outside the shower so you can write down what you think. Because the minute you shut that water off, all thoughts are forgotten. You're like, damn, what was I saying to myself? It's a what I say, if you don't laugh at who you are, you're gonna hope somebody's gonna be laughing with you, not crying. Because a lot of people don't even like who they are by themselves. They think if I get a mate, the mate will make me a better person.
That's what they think. But I think it boils down to two. Yeah, a lot of people don't even get deep enough to understand.
They don't
know
get
themselves.
Right.
So then they get with this mate thinking
the
that okay,
shadow box, yeah,
right, that
yeah.
this person would complete me.
Right, and you already complete when you came into this world. You're gonna go out alone by yourself. You can come in by yourself.
Right, because again, we're going back to society norms and stuff like that, and we
right.
try to shove down our throats about people. Which, I'll go back to our brains are wired to connect.
Right, but that's a genuine connection. I can probably guarantee most best connections are, what's that word I'm looking for? Organically made.
Go into detail about that.
Like, if you go back into, let's say, relationships that last forever, nothing's forever yet, they've lasted a long time. They probably met in a store. They probably bumped into each other, or they met at a funeral, or they met at a weird place, and they hit it off ever since.
Yeah.
And that could be platonic and romantic. It's those organic relationships where you're not intentionally saying, I need you to marry me because I need a ring on my finger.
That's a fact. Because I was just saying on another podcast that I did today, I was basically saying that, it's crazy how the longest and strongest relationships are relationships where people start off as friends.
Yeah, because that's the foundation. The foundation is a friendship.
Absolutely.
And it's the top tier friendship. It's not the acquaintance. It's not the associate. It's not the colleague. It's not the student. It's a genuine friendship.
What's a tip you give as far as like men and women coming together and really wanting to get to know each other first instead of just trying to get to that end goal? For women, it's mostly a relationship. Men, they trying to.
Well, it's funny you said because women have the same concept a man does. She's trying to get it too. Hit it and quit it. But because her emotions are so much involved, she's like, well, no, because you went inside of me, I need more of you. If she would think on the logical aspect, because her intuition has told her from the rip, we could see a man that likes us a mile away, like, oh, yeah, I already see it. Yeah. The man, he trying to think like, oh, she ain't see me yet. Like, we been peeped you. Been peeped you. So to them, it's actually switched. The man wants the long-term relationship. The woman wants the catering to their emotions.
Got you.
So men normally try to cater to their emotions and women pretend that they want the relationship. Real women, if you ask them these days, they don't really care for the marriage anymore.
They don't.
They don't. Because it's the man who wants somebody to cuddle up to at nighttime. It's the man who wants to feel like make me feel needed. Because women will tell you, when I met my ex-husband, I told him, I don't need you for shit. I want you.
Yeah, that's the way.
I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to straight up tell it to you. I don't need you. I have my car, I have my place, I have this, I have that. You have conversation. Oh, okay. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So that to me, I didn't see it as anything more or less. Yet, what I've learned when I'm
So what?
speaking,
Where the flip happened? Where the switch happened? Right?
uh
Because
huh.
men project out there that that's all they want. Now I get that that's kind of a facade, but they play this facade very well.
If you don't know the game,
What's the game?
so well, playing for keeps. So they're typically playing to keep a woman because they know in their minds they can't do everything without a woman.
Okay.
So they have to project like, I don't need you in the back, baby, believe it. They the ones pillow talking more than anybody else. If you with a man for that long, you realize, wait, so you, oh, okay. But again, as a woman, just like they say in any relationship, a man is the seed planter. He plants the seed.
Mm-hmm.
You give us a sperm, we obviously create the baby. Because again, the sperm doesn't connect with the egg. The egg comes out and chooses a sperm. I'm like, well, you gotta choose a bad one. Oh, okay, that's what we know.
Right.
But
Okay.
but either way, the woman chooses. The same way we can choose to say no, we can choose to say yes. Women don't like rejection just as much as a man doesn't like rejection, but because we have logic, we can be like, oh, okay. We can turn negative into positive.
Yeah.
Men sadly try to do only negative into more negative. Right. So the tip for dating yourself is being okay with rejection on either side
Yes.
and allowing rejection to turn into restoration for yourself. Even though he said no to you, okay, maybe it wasn't for you. You don't know what was coming down the pike that could have been way worse.
Right.
I tell women who date men and they feel heartbroken, I'm like, you ain't got a child with this man. You ain't got no marriage with this man. You ain't got no property with this man. Be grateful. It could have been way worse. Yet, for those who are mothers, we have to recognize that and understand that we were the ones gifted to bring the ancestors returned here, and that we are the ones able to allow them to find their purpose through our nurturing and love as women.
Okay.
What I also find is that mothers who date, we're still healing through our children.
Yeah.
When I see women who aren't mothers, they have it a different route. I would say sometimes their willpower is different from ours
It is.
because they view life from a different angle. And I always say, I was like, mothers, we really count those 24 hours in a day. Serious. I'm checking. Oh, that was an hour and a half. Okay. 30 minutes. Okay. Because we know once the children come around, it's focus on these children.
Yeah.
Yet we can create magical things because we know what our womb has done before and it could do something greater again.
Yeah.
So it's one of them was to tap into the water, take the bath if you can't get to a pool or a beach, and just let that release in the water.
So should they be like, what if they tub is small, bro, and they can't just?
You better hit up the YMCA. You better get you to a pool. I remember last year around this time. Oh God, I had a huge incident going on at the house, and I was so grateful. Ancestors made a way for me to get to the beach in Florida, and I literally soaked for 6 hours in the water.
That's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna ask for one more tip, and then I want to move into the last topic. So you're in the water, right? What's a tip to just? What's a good question to start it off while you're in the water to help you just to have somebody ask themselves and to answer back to themselves?
Well, they're gonna get an answer.
Yeah.
So let me say what not to do. To not start off your questions with a why. Because why don't give you solutions. How do. So ask yourself, how did I get here? How am I healing? How am I assessing what I'm doing? Because I'm telling you, they're going to answer you.
Yes.
Spirit is going to answer you, or your voice is going to answer you. And for me, I'm a little hard-headed. I was just telling somebody today, my ancestors, my spirit guides, they yell at me. And I'm like, you ain't got to yell back to these. You don't listen. Oh, okay. They've gotten to the point where they're yelling because I was so hard-headed for so many years. And I have to honor it because they've never failed me yet. So your inner voice will never fail you. It's just learning to trust it.
Learn to trust it. I think too, like maybe learning to decipher.
Decipher, yeah.
Because I feel like there's I feel like there's downloads coming, but then there's also that negative self talk as well.
But you know that negative self-talk is not you.
Right,
It sounds like
that's
you.
the ego.
Right. So let's say the conversation comes in. Give me an example of what the negative self-talk sounds like. Just one statement they say.
I remember before I started this podcast, everybody was telling me, "Hey, you need to do video."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in my head, like, you don't look the part to be in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
That was something negative. That was
So did you ever ask yourself, how am I supposed to look?
not at that time,
Okay.
but eventually, I did,
Okay. And you're here today.
and I'm here today.
Right. So when you ask those negative thoughts, how, most times they don't have an answer because they're expecting a negative. You're right. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
They're expecting that negative energy to feed back into
To
it. If you hit them with the positive, they're like, oh, God, we just fall away.
Right. Right. I'm trying to think for me, like, what really did it for me to. For me, I don't hear a voice all the time. It's like for me, it's more of a feeling in my spirit. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it can be like a legible voice, but in a way, it's more of feelings of when to move on something, when to
and your intuition.
Yeah, and the feeling be so strong. Where it's like, okay, I have to move on this because if I don't,
it's gonna be a problem.
It's gonna be a problem in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So that's more of how my downloads, I think, come to me. Okay, so that's good to know. I wanted to know because we be going off at tangents, honey. Okay, yeah, I wanted to just give a tip because a lot of people, I feel like, well, they can take the advice. They'll go into the pool. But then again, if the ego is in the way, they're not gonna just submerge in the water and let themselves just kind of go and ask those questions and really get to know themselves because the ego is.
So then when you said the ego, so they have to ask themselves how. Oh, the question just left me. It was a how question. How do I know my ego is in the way?
But people wouldn't even. But people who are not even spiritually that deep wouldn't even. Ask that question.
Even to not be spiritual deep, because people don't realize what's ego and what's not.
Right, because that's what I was gonna say. They wouldn't even know that is a thing.
So to have an ego, it's first of all having a guard up. Like if someone says something to you, you get defensive. It's like no. Right. Digest what they say. It's constructive criticism. A lot of people don't know how to take constructive criticism. Right. It's meant to construct and criticize from a different angle. And it's also to recognize that you're not doing it for other people to see you. Because when you're looking around, is this, am I wearing this thong right? No. You come in and listen, we all have body parts. And one of the things that for me as that mental midwife, I've seen naked bodies. Yeah. So I'm like, I've seen a vagina open up with a whole head come out, a whole body come out. Yeah. Yet for me, I've learned, and I think I've always been this way, to not sexualize the body. I think as human beings, we've sexualized it so much, we don't realize that you don't have anything more different than she got and he got. Right. And a man's penis is the clit just pushed out. So we talking the same thing. We all got the same thing. You got 10 fingers, 10 toes. Oh, okay. So having to try to show off for other people's attention, again, shows that you're not doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. Most times when women get dressed up, especially with the surgeries, they do it for other women. They don't do it for the men.
That's what I'm hearing. They do it for the other women and try to,
Because again, it's the competition. Because if you're with a man for years and what have you, men already know what you look like naked. Right. So they love you just as you are. And that to me is a true love where to me I can trust a man's judgment because they just cut straight to the point. Yeah. Yet sometimes a woman is like, no, I got to pretend and I got to be this and I got to be that. And the man's like, but I saw your heart and that's what I went for.
So so I would say that's for the women who are in relationships, right? And they get the surgery. What about the women who get the surgery and thinking that, okay, this is how I'm going to get the men's?
But why would that be your concept to get the means? I don't even know. I guess I'm trying to think. Why are we doing things to our body to get someone else to be attracted to us?
The sad part is, again, they don't understand self.
Right. So that to me is a little mind-boggling because we're living a life here on this earth for a purpose, a life calling. We all are.
Yeah.
Yet, why are we so distracted to get to the superficial side of looking good for somebody else who probably doesn't look good to themselves?
Because they ain't that deep and they don't understand.
Oh, okay,
yet.
okay,
So
okay.
we trying to bring it back.
Okay. So we bringing it back. We bringing it back. So the ones who are trying to get the men's who have these surgeries, I would highly suggest that they take time for what they're spending their time on and realizing, are they focused on themselves?
Got you. And then some will argue and say that this is for them and they want to look this way and they want their ass to look this way and they want their waist to be snatched. Like, and don't get me wrong, you know that it's nice now to.
It's nice to look at, right?
It's nice now,
but what's the side effects? Couple years down the line, it pops, or
it depends,
right? What's the side effects?
Like you got to keep it up too. So there's a lot. So I mean, it's nice. There's some
right.
women who actually they say they do it for themselves.
And I get it. It could be boredom. It could be they do it for themselves. Yet for me, you could have done it a different way where you could have actually lost the weight mentally. And then the weight would drop because most times weight is stress. It's nothing else.
Yeah.
So we carry other people's burdens. That's why we hold on to the weight. So it's actually the weight of other people's thoughts that we're holding on to. If we would actually get in a place of, okay, let me exercise, let me cleanse my body and cleanse my mind, I can get to that point. But in reality, you would never really get there because that's not how you were made. We weren't all made to have a Coca-Cola body. Like,
yeah, but that's what they want, so that's why they go out there and they get it.
But because that's the option. That's like the same comparison to formula and breast milk. Yeah. So breast milk is naturally made. Yeah. Our bodies make it. Every woman, for the most part, makes it. And it's like paradise to every baby. Yeah. The formula is an option that society gives you to be the comparison to what is already natural. Yeah. So the thing about our bodies, we're already naturally beautiful. Every woman is beautiful. Every man is beautiful. Absolutely. We have to appreciate what our paradise looks like. If we were taking care of if we knew that we were paradise, you wouldn't want to spend a dime on trying to alter it.
It's so hard to get to where you're speaking of, though. And I know that this is like foreign language to a lot of people. Okay. So I know I got in a mindset of myself where I'm like, I really love myself. But I just got here.
Oh, yeah, it's a journey.
It's a long and hard.
You better hold on because it's a journey.
It's a long and hard journey.
I'm usually surprised to hear these 20-something-year-olds say they got it. I'm like, you ain't even experienced that life yet.
Well, you know that with the internet and stuff, though, they get to hear people.
Well, that's desensitized. Yeah, well,
but I know for me, I feel like, I remember I was talking to somebody else on another podcast and was like, it's nothing like going through it, though.
You got to go through it. Even if you hear it, okay, you might put that in your little pocket. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Yeah. Yeah, in order for you to receive it, you got to go through it.
I get mad. Maybe it's me because I know I'm very hard-headed.
I'm all the way like, oh, God. Right. Oh, what? No? Oh, God. Oh, okay.
Right. So I'm like, I don't know. Me, I literally have to go through it. But I just got to that state of I love myself, roles and all, and like I said, dating myself, talking to myself, understanding myself. Now there's still things I need to as human beings, of course, learning and stuff like that. But I'm grateful I'm at a place now where I'm okay with myself.
I'm okay, right? And if I choose to do some risky shit, that's on me.
Yeah,
that's on right. That's on nobody else.
I'm at a place where I don't have to be in a relationship. I'm not looking for a man to save me.
Right. That's a Captain Save-A-Ho. Okay.
Yeah. For a very long time, I was looking for a man to save me. Okay. And I would go out here playing Captain Save-A-Ho.
No, you weren't the Save-A-Ho. You wanted to be saved. So he had the cape on.
Let me hear me out. I had the cape on.
Okay.
Saving men in hopes
that they saving
would turn around and they would do the same for me. Whether that's being loyal, whether that's turning around and doing the same.
But that means your intentions weren't good.
My intentions were not good. Okay. But again, I went in with good intentions.
Thinking they were good. But you wanted the reciprocation of somebody else to give it to you.
Absolutely. So again, that's what I mean by I feel like we all go into situations with good intentions, but don't understand the outcomes of what we're really seeking because we don't know ourselves. So I know for me, for a long time, I went in as a representative trying to seek something. Okay. But I was seeking it from the wrong people. And then also not fully understanding that, hey, what I need to give it to myself first.
Right, right.
So once I have it for myself, I can attract the people that I'm looking for and exude that energy out.
Right,
so,
right.
But anyway, what love looks like for human beings alone. What does love look like for human beings alone?
To love yourself being alone. And I guess they say as Sages, we are the loners of the zodiac. We enjoy our alone time. Like I could honestly be in the Amazon.
Aquarius has got us beat.
No, they do. They do, but they're too much in their head to do what we would do.
That's a fact.
They are not the risk takers. They could act like, oh God.
No, they not.
We'll be the ones, buy me that woman ticket to the Amazon. No looking back. Leave all phones, all family.
That's a fact.
Talk to me telepathically. That's it. That's what I do now with my children. I attempt to teach them how to connect with me telepathically because I know my son has it and he's always had it. I can say something in my mind and he'll do it. The girls, I'm like, I got to work with them. Okay. But that's where I want to be because if I'm going to be on the other side of the country, I could just talk to you telepathically. If you need me, reach out.
Is that like a feeling you get?
What? Telepathically?
Yeah, like you get like a hunch or a feeling. You know I'm going to ask these follow-up questions now because people normally don't talk like this.
So let me say, there was one time my son had spent the night at his friend's house and I was sleeping on the couch that night. I don't know why. And I jumped up at like midnight. I was like, I got to call him. And I couldn't call him because he didn't have a phone at that point. Come to find out, around that time, he was sleeping at his friend's house on the couch and they had bed bugs and he got bit up at that time. He came back. I'm like, what in the hell? He was like, Mom, I don't know. And I was like, this is why I had the hunch that something was off with you.
Right.
And it was just, it felt just like inside. I
have those same feelings too. But you know, you talk about telepathically, you thinking about movies where you literally are having conversations with the person there.
Now, I have had conversations with my son. When late, and I would just kind of play the test to see how much it works. Like, I'll be in my room, he'd be in his room. And I would say, hey, come close the door for me. And he would be talking to his sister in another room, and he would get up, nonchalant. Yeah. You come close the door.
Yo, we gonna talk offline.
Okay.
We gonna talk offline about.
So loving yourself looks like having those conversations with honesty, realizing that a lot of situations, a lot of those relationships that you were in, you were the toxic person.
Yeah.
And recognizing how did I get myself caught up into attracting this person, and what was the lesson that I needed to learn?
Absolutely.
How much of the lesson did I learn?
That's good to know because a lot of people, and I'll say myself too, like you kind of like what we just was talking about. I would go into a relationship doing the most,
right?
Thinking I was not the toxic. I didn't have no toxicity in me at all.
Right. I'm clean.
I'm absolutely. Right. It was these motherfuckers. Right.
But then realizing that because we're in that mode of mother,
right,
we're toxic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a very hard pill for me to swallow.
It is. Hard. We got to digest these hard horse pills.
Yeah, because
they big.
Definitely a hard horse pill to learn that, okay, you also were the bad guy in your own way.
Right. Because you got in your own way.
And got in my own way, but also, and I don't want to, it's real weird with me because I know in the past, like, I would do for people, and I honestly wasn't expecting anything back in a way, but at the same time, you want reciprocation. You want that. So I never was the type to kind of hold anything against anybody, but it would really hurt when I didn't get it back. And I think deep down inside, for a lot of the men, now friends, stuff like that, that's my personality.
Okay.
But I think a lot of the men, when I didn't get back and I really looked at it, it was kind of like, even though I wasn't like holding it against them, I was using certain aspects of my resources, of my not my personality, my resources, and doing for them to manipulate them in a way to get them to bend, and not really just set expectations and use my voice. And so in a way, I was the bad guy, and I had to own up to that.
Well, and I'm glad you owned up to it. Yet, in recognition, were you really the bad guy? Number one, because there's no real bad guy. You came in with good intentions, Yet one of the things I learned from my ex-husband was that a lot of people do competition. We do tit for tat.
Yeah.
Where we're checking off. And there was a time when he was like, well, I did the dishes, I did the laundry, I did this. I'm like, in a family, you don't do that. We're not checking off certain
Right.
things. If we're a unit, we're going to switch roles anyway. Because
Yeah.
in a healthy environment, the roles are going to have to switch in a family environment, especially with children, because somebody has to pick up the role for different places. Yet you end up growing resentment towards yourself because you allowed those things to happen with these mates where you thought they were going to do what you did for them.
Yeah.
And I say that in relationships with friendship because friendships, I say, are comical because one side gives, over gives.
Yeah.
The other side is not a giver. So you can't always expect them to do what you did for them. They're not going to do it. That's not just them.
Right.
That's not who they are. They may give in different ways, but they're not going to give the way you gave.
Yeah.
And I would say this, givers are surrounded by takers.
They are.
And I forgot the other train of thought. I don't know. Givers are surrounded by takers, yet you have to always know what is your reasoning for being around this energy.
And that's something I do now. Right? I definitely think
Okay.
before I'm around a certain person, or I give, even before I give.
Okay.
Especially in romantic relationships, because my problem is mostly romantic relationships.
Okay.
I always think of the why behind it and make sure that the intention is I can give. Now I have no problem setting my expectations.
Okay.
I've grown from that in regards to just not expecting somebody to just be like me.
Right.
But even with me doing that, I also think before I give. What is my reasoning? How am I feeling? All of that stuff before I give a yes or a no.
Oh, you mean if someone is asking
if
to
somebody's
give?
Asking, or even if they don't ask and they present a problem. Because I'm usually the type to jump in and be like, here you
Give
go.
a solution. Okay.
But
so what I've had to learn, because I'm a counselor, a couples counselor, and I get the strangers who come with their challenges, I used to just give the solution.
Yeah.
And I realized I was like, wait, you're getting paid to give solutions. So I'm going to need you to zip it and just say, okay, if you're ready, you'll come. So even for you, you're not a couples counselor, yet you're recognizing that a lot of these situations are coming to you because they're not wanting to deal with it themselves.
Yeah.
So you have to give it back to them. Like, well, how would you handle it?
And that's exactly what I do now.
It's giving it back.
Always being the person to be like,
right,
let me help you. Let me this. You do this, and this.
Right.
Yeah,
they don't want to use their own brain.
Right. No, I definitely give
it's giving it back
now.
Yeah.
And if I don't give the situation back, it's thought through at least to a certain degree. Especially if they're the type of person who's always take.
Right.
And they don't. There's a whole story.
Yeah, and even with family, a lot of our family members are takers because we're givers, and most times we end up being the enablers of the family, so they know who to come to get what.
Right.
But yeah, that's a whole nother.
There's a whole nother podcast, and we've been going off on tangents and segues the whole podcast. So I want, before we leave here and we get your channels and all that stuff, one tip on shadow work, root work that you would give to somebody who listened to this podcast and probably maybe a light bulb came up, like maybe I need to dig more into myself. How would you advise someone to get started?
Recognize what was your most recent trigger. Who would it come from? What did it make you feel like? Where did it take you back to? Because the trigger's going to throw you right back to that spot that you haven't even addressed yet.
Absolutely.
So if you're ready to do the shadow work, once you recognize where it came from, then you take that time to either journal it out, audio it out, peel back those questions. How did I get there? How do I feel like this now? How am I still being triggered from my childhood?
Got you. And I know you just broke down how you probably would work with the client on that, because you explained shadow work and how you feel it would benefit someone who is wanting to date and wanting to attract better partners and better people.
Mm-hmm. So shadow work, and I think we talked about the last time, shadow work is addressing those inner parts of you that are, for lack of a better word, toxic. Those parts of you that if you had vomit inside of you, That's what the shadow work is. Because when that vomit comes up, and it will, and it always does, you have to be able to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, sit in it and sift through it. Because you'll realize that a lot of those thoughts and emotions were what you thought you felt, but not realize the perspective of how it happened.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say something happened as a child, that as a child's perspective, you're looking at it as, let's say, a father walks out on a child at like 6 years old. The child was blaming themselves the whole time as they're getting older. It's my fault. The dad left. He did it because he didn't like me. Things like that. Yet now as an adult, you're dealing with abandonment because you're thinking somebody's going to leave me again. I'm going to feel the same 6-year-old way I felt before. Opposed to recognizing, number one, your father didn't leave because of you. Clearly, him and your mom had some hiccups that they didn't address. You've not ever been left alone from those that love you. And if your father couldn't be there, I'm sure there was some avenues of your life where you got reunited or whatever the case may be. Those feelings were as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
You're no longer a 6-year-old. Acknowledge the fact that if those that need to be in your life will be there, you'll see that. So they'll have to now look at the people in their life and now assess, you're here for a reason for what? They may tend to lash out on the people, but it's best to, again, keep your mouth shut and keep your mind open.
Okay.
So you can now sit within yourself and take that time to heal by yourself. Because really healing, you're doing that by yourself.
Got you.
As a healer, I can get you to the fork in the road, but it's up to you to go left or right.
Got you. I want to piggyback on the question. Why do you think as human beings we are so fixated and focused on the ones who left? The ones who didn't do right?
Because we blame ourselves for them leaving.
But there's so much love around us.
It doesn't matter, they're gone. The imagination goes crazy. So you're imagining if they were here, X, Y, and Z. If mom was a better woman, dad would have been here. There's a lot of blame because they're not understanding why they're at a 6-year-old level.
Got you.
So they're trying to figure out, well, why did this happen? How come I feel like this? Children are selfish. They're ungrateful. All of that.
They see the world in their own view, yeah.
Right. So to understand why a child thinks the way they do, they're going to always love the absent because absent is what you don't know.
That's true. So do you think as adults we're still in that 6-year-old mind frame?
Oh, yeah.
And then when we get with a dismissive person,
we trigger
that thought and chasing the imagination of what it could be.
Because the imagination equals love. So we'll end up, let's say if a 6-year-old girl, she's probably going to end up getting a mate who's just like the father who left.
Yeah.
Because that's the imagination of love.
Got you. And I know the imagination of love, and I've talked about this on a lot of different podcasts. Like my dad was very dismissive with his emotions and all that stuff, and I tended to steer to guys because that's what I just was familiar with.
Right.
But I found myself trying to recreate the same patterns, same scenarios, but changing it to where I would end up connecting with this man.
Because you wanted that man to be your father.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I see that now that I'm older.
Right.
But I didn't see that.
Of course, you're going through the process.
Right. So okay. So that's shadow work. I feel like we're going off on another tangent.
What time is
okay. Deniece, where can the audience find you? What projects do you have going on right now?
So one of my main projects right now is my second book called The Urban Language, Love for Our Culture. It talks about our 5 love languages. And I say our 5 because in being the one to be able to coach couples and counsel couples of our culture, I've recognized that those 5 love languages that are addressed by that gentleman that wrote that purple book, Gary, I forgot his name.
I can't remember his last name.
All right, I can see the book.
I
think it's Love It. I'm not sure. Those are our superficial love languages. Mm-hmm. As a culture, we learn love from kind of what I just touched on, from abandonment, from food, from addiction, from violence, from emotional withdrawal.
Yeah.
We learn those love languages. We learn that's why we attracted to who we are attracted to. Yet it's having to, if we don't address what love looks like internally as a child, we're never going to get to a healthy place of why did I love that?
Okay.
And how am I still there loving that, knowing that that's not healthy, but you have to get to the unhealthy first to see what healthy looks like.
Absolutely.
Because most people say, well, healthy is boring. It's really not. Your anxiety is not up. Your nervous system is not being attacked every 5 seconds. You're not thinking I need to go to a substance to abuse it to get better or to numb me from my real feelings.
Right.
It's having to. I always try to make a joke. I'm going to stand outside of a liquor store and just ask a survey, why are you here? But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, because most people drink are trying to numb their trauma.
That's a fact.
So, having to understand what that looks like. So I'm in the process of completing that major book because it is an eye-opener to us as a people to understand our growth from where we came from to where we're going. And having to acknowledge it and recognize we're not bashing the baby boomers. We're not bashing the grandparents of that stage. What we're saying is the tradition and that culture led us to where we are today.
Yeah.
Where we are now recognizing we have a voice and we have a voice to use. One of my quotes I've said before, a woman's most vulnerable voice is her vagina. A woman's most vulnerable vagina is her voice. Sorry. And I say that because the vagina looks just like a voice box. And it's something where our voice box beats 220 beats per second as a woman because we talk so much. Yet, if we actually said those basic words to what we need to say, who we need to say it to, life would be so much simpler. The whole purpose of living life is simplicity because why are we paying for water? Water is free. Why are we paying for sunlight? Vitamin D gives it to us free. These things that are basic necessities are free, but we pay to enjoy luxuries that come with a bigger price. So that was one of the projects. And a few children's books. One based from an incident that happened, one of the twins when they were 4, when, it was a touch. It's called Touch, Don't Touch. It talks about what you can touch, what you can't touch on a child's body. And another children's book where it's called Her Lost Mind. In order for her to address where her blanks were coming from in her mind, she had to realize she was traumatized. So she realized she had lost her mind because she had no memories. Because remember, trauma subdues memories. You don't get a chance to see it. You're like, I don't remember nothing. I wasn't there. And everybody's like, you wasn't there. Yeah, that's another avenue I'm going down. And from the book that I wrote in 2017, Justice for the Caged Mind, I'm now expanding on that book into coursework, into audio, ebook, breaking down the purpose, healing, and learning of that book.
That's awesome. Now, where can the audience find you?
They can't. No, I'm joking. You can find me on my website, Deniece-Camile.com, Deniece-Camille.com. They can find me on Instagram, Deniece_Camile. You can find me on Facebook, Deniece-Camile. On TikTok, Deniece Camile 1. Usually I'm posting as a mental midwife because I'm giving like 2 words of the day because I need you to rebirth your mind to rebirth your heart. So it's let's break down the etymology of what words truly mean. So I do that now and I have different content here and there, yet it's mainly for self-awareness.
I love that. So
yes.
All of those links will be in the show notes. I want to thank you for coming on, Deniece.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. And
I'm like, is the chair levitating with us?
Yes. And I want to thank all of the listeners. And until next time.
Yes.